Hello, how's it going? Okay, cool. So today we're going to be talking about Noah and the flood and all of that wonderful, controversial stuff. And we'll pair it up with a heavy seas, red skies at night. It's interesting because the whole phrase, red skies at night, sailor's delight, red skies in the morning, sailor's warning, is actually talked about in the Bible. Jesus actually talks about it. It's pretty cool. In Matthew 16, verse 2, in the whole first part of chapter 16, it's brought up, and you could check that out. He kind of throws it in the face of the Pharisees like he loves to do. And he wraps it up with, an evil and adulterous generation seeks for a sign, but none will be given to it except for the sign of Jonah. Which is funny because that's not funny. This beer would be better suited to parallel it right here in Matthew, but today we're in Genesis 6, and we're going with the heavy seas parallel, because here in the story, the seas get pretty heavy. Also, I like to imagine Noah on the ark just kind of chilling there on a hammock or something like that. You get hints through the story here that Noah was kind of lazy near the end. You know, maybe, I don't know. So anyways, this study is going to be talking about Genesis 6 through 10, which is only a few pages, but honestly, there's so much there. A lot of theology, a lot of doctrine, a lot of weird stuff. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a look at the weird stuff. First thing we've got is the sons of God, daughters of man. Okay, that happens right in chapter 6, verse 2. The sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose. So the phrasing there is kind of weird. Sons of God, daughters of man. Let's clear this up. A lot of explanations have been proposed as to what this means. Some of them are really crazy. Others are less crazy. There's not one that really seems to get a lot of approval over another. Here in the footnotes of my Bible, actually, we have a couple of ideas. It says, various scholars have proposed that the sons of God were fallen angels. Some, however, suggest that this contradicts Mark 12:25, though the reference in Mark is to angels in heaven. See what I mean? Weird stuff. Another idea is that these were possibly demon-possessed men. Another one is that these could be the people from the line of Seth, but who were the ungodly line of Seth, who married the ungodly daughters of Cain. If you remember what we learned in the last episode about them, that might make sense. Whoever they are, it is very clear that they are extremely perverted. So let's take a look at the 120 years. This happens in the next verse, verse 3. And then the Lord said, my spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh. Some translations kind of spell out, my spirit shall not contend with man forever. For he is flesh, his days will be 120 years. I think that this is possibly the number of years that God was going to give man before the flood. So at this point, when humanity is extremely corrupt, they're rebelling against God, and God kind of says, okay, 120 years, and this will be solved. 120 years, and that's it. I'm dealing with this. Okay, now the Nephilim, who were on the earth in those days, who the heck are they? Some people have said that these are giants. These are like huge people. Other people said, I've heard once, that they're dinosaurs. I don't think so, because it's definitely talking about a group of people. I told you, weird stuff. So more than likely, the Nephilim would be a group of warriors, hostile group of people, obviously playing a very strong part in how wicked humanity has become at this point. Now let's take a look at the misconceptions. There are loads of them. There's tons of them in throughout this book. A lot of people have a certain idea of who Noah was that is pretty skewed. And that's my first point I want to talk about is the favor was a gift. And what I'm talking about is verse 8, but Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. A lot of people read that and say, oh, but Noah was the only good guy on the earth. Noah's great. Noah's a hero. He's our guy. But before this, in verse 5, we learned that the Lord saw the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. That includes Noah. It does. So when Noah finds favor in the eyes of the Lord, It's God's grace being shown to Noah. Now, if God says he's going to take care of this issue in 120 years, he has time to reach Noah, grab him, change his heart, and that is then when Noah becomes a great guy. He becomes a righteous man. He starts walking with God. So that's a huge misconception that we need to get straight, because that really changes a lot of the rest of the story. Go Bucks. I just got so excited about Noah and all the weird stuff, I totally forgot to open up my beer here. Saisons are a really great beer. They're fruity, they're lighter. You don't see them that often. They're very sweet, pretty sour, actually. It's like sourdough bread in liquid form. Lots of coriander on the nose. It's good stuff. Very, very light and very refreshing. Really good on a hot summer day. So the boat was huge. A lot of people think of, okay, Noah builds a boat. He's out there in the ocean, the flood, doing his thing. This was like a hotel. This thing was huge. This thing would have been 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. Here's a good image for you. Definitely plenty of room for all of the family and all of the animals, which brings us to our next point. How many animals? Typically, we hear, 2 of every animal. But that's actually not true. Here in chapter 7, verse 2, take with you 7 pairs of all clean animals, the male and its mate, and a pair of the animals that are not clean. So, of all the clean ones, you got 7 pairs. This is an incredible amount of animals on this ark. Just another small misconception that gets thrown to the wind over the years, I guess. So now as you read the story of the flood and everything that happens, and by the way, read it. It is an extreme blessing that we have the Bible, the Word of God, something that we take very seriously, and it's here available for us. Read it. I'm sure what will happen when you read it is you'll ask the question, did this really happen? I mean, everyone does. Everyone does. Nowadays, even amongst Christians, if you ask them, they'll say, no, it probably didn't happen, or maybe it wasn't a worldwide flood, it was maybe just the region. Or they might even say, nah, it's just a story. Now, I want to keep my presentation, my episode here on the shorter side. So what I want to do is offer up some good references to help you gather more information on the question of, did this really happen? As well as other suggestions that this story brings up. The first 11 chapters of Genesis stir up a grand amount of controversy, but this story in particular, the story of the flood, often becomes one of, if not the focal point for most conversations, studies, or debates on creationism versus evolution, creation versus the Big Bang, creation versus any other scientific interpretation that, I guess, opposes what is explained in Genesis. Maybe one day I will make an episode that will get into all of these debates, but until then, I'll offer up some excellent references that you can use to gather information and learn more about these things. First off, here is an excellent debate that is available on YouTube. It is on evolution and creationism. The debaters are Ken Ham, who is the man behind the development of the Creation Museum in Kentucky. He is a very intelligent scientist, and I think he does a wonderful job at explaining a lot of the views we hold as Christians when it comes to the origins of the world and other ideas. And the lovable Bill Nye. Yes, Bill Nye, the science guy, who is as well a very intelligent scientist, one we all know and love, I'm sure. I used to love watching his TV show when I was a kid, and I even enjoy some of his recent YouTube videos, even though I do happen to disagree with where he stands on the topic at hand. Bill Nye, I believe, is an atheist and has recently been doing a lot of work to further spread his, his particular worldview, for lack of a better way of putting it. So check this debate out. It is long. It's like 2.5 hours long. The first 13 minutes are a countdown on this particular video, but I promise you, you will learn a lot, and it will help you make more sense of what we believe as Christians and the whole topic in general. One more great reference I would recommend is to go to www.marshill.com and click on their sermon section, go down to the sermon archive area, and get down to what is called their Doctrine series. In their Doctrine series, watch the third one, which is called Creation God Makes. Mars Hill is one of the fastest growing churches in the United States, and Mark Driscoll, who is the founder of Mars Hill and head pastor, does a great job of explaining what the Bible says about the earth, mankind, creation, the flood, and much, 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 much more. This one is shorter. To some it might still be long. It is almost 45 minutes long, but it really is compacted with an incredible amount of knowledge that is extremely valuable for you to have when studying and reading these first 11 chapters of Genesis, and in particular, when trying to answer the question of, did this really happen? With that, what do I believe? I believe this happened. Now, sometimes I'm tempted to say, hey, you know what? I don't care what you believe, as long as you get the moral of the story, get the fact that God is the hero of the story. But the truth is, I do care. I do care that people read the Bible and read it correctly. And the truth is, yes, this tells us that there was a flood of the earth. Noah built an ark, put his family and all these animals in there, and was floating around. It is an incredible story of obedience. It is an incredible story about faith. But I hope when you read this, you also get the incredible grace that God has. Now, yes, the flood is a judgment, and judgment is a terrible thing. It is a scary thing, but you know what? It's true. And just like it happened back then, it's going to happen to us when we meet the Lord at the end of our life or come Judgment Day. So read it, and read it with that in mind. Because if you don't, you're going to do what everyone else does and impart your own ideas and apply things that aren't supposed to be applied to it. And that would change the meaning. That would change its purpose. And let me tell you, our God is a very serious God. It comes through in this story. So when we read the Bible, we want to read it and try to get out of it what God is telling us, not what we want the story to say. So to answer this question really quickly, did this happen? Yes. 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 But if you don't agree with me, it's fine. I'm not mad at you. I just want you to take a second look at it. Cool? Cool. You might think I'm an ignorant moron for believing that. That's okay too. Please send me an email. I love ignoring your emails. Okay. One of the best parts about Noah's story are the promises that come out of it. So we've got the rainbow as a sign of God's covenant with us that he will never do this again. That's at the end of chapter 8. By the way, all the doomsday preppers, take this last part of chapter 8 here and really, really, really dwell on it. Yes, times will get hard, but every time you see a rainbow, you can rest assured God is in control. Chapter 9, verse 9, we've got the nation. Behold, I establish my covenant with you and your offspring after you. Let's back up a little bit. Be fruitful and multiply, increase on the earth. Now, just these two, the rainbow and the nations. Did that happen? Is that true? Yes. We still have the rainbow. The world is covered with nations. Two truths came out of this story that God kept his promises from. The third one, salvation. Is that true for salvation? Yes. Jesus came from Noah. Look at Luke chapter 3. The end of Luke chapter 3 brings Jesus' line all the way back to Shem, the son of Noah. From Noah's family line, it comes all the way down to Jesus, through whom we gain our salvation. Did this really happen? Well, I know for sure that all these three right here happened. The bow, the nations, and our salvation. Well, I'm pretty sure that this whole story of Noah happened, and it's pretty important. So Genesis 6 through 10 is the story of Noah and the story of the flood. It shows us God's patience with us comes to an end. But it also shows us God's grace. And it also leads to salvation through Jesus Christ. Again, the big theme throughout this study is that God, Jesus Christ, is the hero. And it's no different in these chapters here. It's a resounding theme through the entire book. Now, closing out, we see that Noah wasn't perfect. After the waters subside, the first thing he does is plants a vineyard and gets drunk. Crazy stuff happens. You'll read it. But from here forward, chapter 11, which I'm going to talk about the next episode, which is going to be great, we'll see how God starts to execute a plan and how he starts to deal with us, our rebellion and our denial of God. Then we're introduced to Abram, who later on changes to Abraham, father of our faith, Father Abraham, all that good stuff. And from then, his family, his sons, their sons, their sons. And let me tell you, it is going to be a wild ride through Genesis. Awesome stuff here. So that's Noah. That's the flood. Did it happen? Yes. What was it about? God's grace. Cheers.